So this lecture, we're going to look at some examples of how we can take information about a circle, use that to get the circle's equation. So this first one is really pretty straightforward, but I picked it for a reason because it's going to let me emphasize an important point here. To find the equation of a circle, you absolutely always have to know two pieces of information. You have to know the location of the center, and you have to know the radius. Once you've got those two values, you're home free. We're just going to put them into the equation down here. Just being careful of the negative signs. So h is -3, k is 2, and r is 4. So if I put those in here, this becomes x minus -3, which is +3, plus y minus 2, those are both squared, equals 4 squared, which is 16. Now, when I'm teaching this material, this is a perfectly good answer for me. I would let students stop here and move on to the next question. I know some instructors, you need to be sure you know what your professor or teacher is looking for. Some people would expect you to multiply this out. All right, so I'll go ahead and do it with this one. Right, to do that, you have to make this x plus 3 times x plus 3 plus y minus 2 times y minus 2 equals 16. So this is what, x squared plus 6x plus 9 plus y squared minus 4y plus 4 equals 16. All right, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave the variables alone. X squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 4y. 9 and 4 is 13. And we're going to set this equal to 0. So subtract 16, and this becomes minus 3 equals 0. Right? And now you really can't go any further than this. So that's where we're going to stop. All right, so I've got one here that's a little more interesting. We want to find the equation of a circle, and we know where the center is. So we've got that part, right? One of the two things we need. And we know that it contains the point 5, 2. So I've got this circle, and the center is here. And there's this other point out here that is on the circle. And what I need is the radius. That's my missing piece of information. And I can find that because the radius is the distance from the center out to any point on the edge. So the distance formula is going to give me that missing piece of information. So the distance formula says the distance between these points is the square root of 3 minus 5 squared plus 6 minus 2 squared. That is, let's see, 3 minus 5, that's -2 squared, that's 4, plus 4 squared, that's 16. So this is the square root of 20, and I'm actually not going to simplify that any further. Right? You'll see why in just a second. Now let's drop these things into our formula. X minus 3 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals the square root of 20 squared. You see why I didn't want to try to simplify that at all? Having everything under the square root there actually makes this easier because that is just equal to 20. And the left side stays the same. And there's my equation, and I'm going to stop at this point because that's a perfectly good answer. So I've got one here that's a little more interesting. There's a little more going on to it. So I know that a circle is tangent to the line 3x plus y equals 1 at the point 0, 1. And I know that its center is on this other line, x plus 3y equals 9. And I want the circle's equation. So how am I going to do this? Well, first, let's take this first line here. This line is y equals -3x plus 1. That line has a slope of -3 and the y-intercept is 1. So it's going to look like this. Okay, and I know that the center is on this line over here, the second one. So this is 3y equals -x plus 9. That's y equals -1/3 x plus 3. And that line looks like that. Okay, so I need to know two things, right? I need to know the location of the center and the radius. So how am I going to find those? Well, I know the radius, the center is on that line somewhere. I need to narrow it down. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. My circle is tangent to this line here. All right, that means that if I draw the line perpendicular to that at the point of tangency, that line is going to go through the center of the circle. Right, so what is that line? Well, the slope of this line is -3, which means the slope of my perpendicular line is 1/3, and it has to go through that point of tangency, right? So, which also conveniently, because that point is on the y-axis, is its y-intercept. So this perpendicular line is going to be 1/3 x plus 1. It's going to look like that. So the diagram is giving us a pretty good idea of where this intersection is going to be. We'll solve for it, right? You never want to go just by diagram. Could be really close to the point it looks like. So it's this equation and this equation that are the two that are crossing there. So to find the intersection, I'm going to set them equal to each other. -1/3 x plus 3 equals 1/3 x plus 1. Move the 1/3 over and the 1 over, and we get 2 equals 2/3 x. So x is equal to 3, which does match what we appear to be seeing there. Right, so now let's take this, we'll put it into here, and we'll get the y-coordinate. This is 1/3 times 3 plus 1, which is 2. Good, which is exactly what we're seeing in the drawing, in the diagram. So I know my center now. My center is at 3, 2. 3, 2. But I still need to find the radius. Well, the radius is this segment. That segment is a radius. So if I find its length, then I've got my value of r. So what is that length? Well, r is equal to, we'll use the distance formula here, 3 minus 0 squared plus 2 minus 1 squared. Square root of that. This is the square root of, what, 9 plus 1, so that's 10. And now I can get my equation. My equation is x minus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals the square root of 10 squared, which is 10. And there you go. There's my equation. So the next lecture, we're going to continue this discussion of finding the equation of a circle. But instead of just giving you properties, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, suppose we know the coordinates of some points that are on the circle. Right? For example, we're working on some research project and we have data, and we have data values, and we think those values lie in a circle. How can we find that equation?